welcome to Artistic Adventures. Today we're going to finish up our wood sprite project and we're going to make her a little rustic throne for her forest world. So let's get started. Here's our doll as we finished her up in the last video. And I also wanted to say I was so happy to see people posting some of their creative work on our Facebook page. I really loved it, and I also loved the kind comments and supportive comments that other people were giving those people that posted. That's what it's all about, folks, being positive and helping each other. So we have our doll here, and she has her little rustic little stick with the crystal on top that's like her staff, her magic staff. But I felt like she needed someplace to to pose her that was better than just having her stand here in front of this white curtain. So I found this sort of piece of wood that had fallen out of a tree in my yard. And I thought, well, maybe I could make sort of a throne out of it, and sort of envisioned something that she might have made out of just very basic materials in the forest. As I've said throughout this project, I didn't want this to be, fancy. This is a doll that is very down to earth and basic. So we're going to use these smaller pieces of wood that fell off this pine tree and position them on the back of this larger piece of wood and make sort of a throne effect. And so to do that, I wanted to use some toothpicks to push into these smaller pieces and then have that stick into the larger piece, and that would hold these up in a straight line. I didn't think just gluing them on would work. So they were a little too long, so I cut them in half and then whittled off one end of the half to be sharp. And then I put some of my trusty E6000 glue on one end, and most of these I could just push the stick into it, but some of them I had to drill a hole. But for this one, I just could push it in there. And then I find out where I want to position it, and I use my handy dandy little drill that I have and drill a small hole into the wood and then put more glue on that side. And then I'm going to stick that into that hole that I drilled after I find it. This wood actually was harder than I thought. I thought it was going to be almost rotten, but it wasn't. It actually was kind of hard to get this stuff into. But I'm just continuing this process of putting the half piece of the toothpick into the smaller wood pieces and then drilling holes into the larger piece of wood and placing them in there. And I think when I envisioned this, I was sort of thinking like Game of Thrones, but with wood, with little twigs and not swords, that throne from that series. But it didn't turn out that it's not scary or anything. But I was just thinking of the twigs sticking up and using them in a natural way to sort of make the back of this woodland throne that I envisioned for her, and making them all different lengths because I want them to appear rustic and sort of halfway, you know, put together in a way that wasn't very thought out or fancy or anything like that. So they're just all stuck in there at different heights and different widths. And then that last one I'm going to put in there sort of curves off to one side. And then I wanted to put one on the other end that curves off a little bit. So I had to clear out a space there so I could put the drill hole down there at an angle, and then I also had to angle the bottom of that twig so that it fits in there nicely. And I got my hole in there, and this is the last piece for that. So I think that will do it for the wood pieces, but now I wanted to put something on sort of like a cushion for her to sit on. So I thought, hey, more Spanish moss, right? So got out my bag of Spanish moss and I just put a little bit of glue, dabbed it on here just to really hold it in place because it's, you know, really hard to glue this sort of loose material down, but that seemed to work pretty well. And then I'll show you, I tw twisted some of the vine around this longer piece, for more decoration, but natural decoration, right? So I just did that to a few of these outcropping pieces to add a little bit more greenery and decoration to her little throne perch. And that's really basically it. I don't think it needs a lot more fancy decorations. Maybe when we do a fairy or an elf, we can do something more fancy. But this is going to be her woodland throne or her resting place where she sits and plays with all the animals. So now that we're finished, I wanted to take it outside to pose her on it. So I took her outside to my little garden, and there she is sitting on her forest throne. And I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Coming up, I've got a new doll I'm going to show you. So stay tuned and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a thing. Thanks and bye.